afternoon and welcome to the Radical Esports Cup here on iRacing once again. The 2100 GMT racing continues this time around from the Virginia International Raceway. We're just now 3 rounds away from the end of our season and finding out who's going to be our overall champion in 2025 Season 2. It's myself, Ewan O'Leary and Ron Mounds alongside me for this round of the championship here on the Racebot TV and iRacing YouTube channel. It's good to be back alongside you for this one, Ron. I mean, Virginia International Raceway is such a twisty and technical circuit, but in these SR10s I've already seen some officials racing this week and the signs are good. We're going to have an exciting race tonight.
Oh, VIR always puts on a classic race that the 2024 Radical Sim Racing World Finals took place at last fall. So this track is absolutely fantastic with these SR10s. And look at the remaining tracks that we've got from this schedule. VIR, of course, this week, Man Panorama, Bathurst in 1 week's time, and then Interlagos to bring this season to a close. Some absolutely amazing racetracks, but I have a feeling that this VIR race is going to be absolutely amazing, especially with that massively long back straightaway and the always important draft in these cars.
Yeah, it's a really big straight for these cars actually down that back straight towards turn 14. It's very, very exciting indeed. Havard Gullickson is still our championship leader as things stand. He currently holds 92 points over Rafa Blanco, with Andreas Friedrich just a further 80 points behind. George Gonzaga is in 4th position ahead of Heinz Braun, then over 100 points back to Andre Castro, Grisel Larson, Sully Reitonen, Christopher Yanakis and Dennis Kirikopoulos rounding out the 10 drivers in the top 10. I'm not really sure who to call for who's still involved in the championship here, really, Ron. It's going to be hard for us really to get a picture tonight as to who's going to be gaining or losing, really, as it always is when we watch individual races like this. But Gullickson's got a decent lead there. I'm finding it hard, though, to count out really anybody, certainly in the top 5, maybe even deeper than that.
Yeah, I think Havard Gullickson is definitely your favorite at this point in the season. He is the reigning champion, despite the fact he only has 1 win in these broadcasted races. That coming at week 5 at Mugello over a month ago at this point. He's always quick in these SR10s. He may not be the most flashy and flamboyant, but he's the one that has the pace, and he's also super consistent as well, which when these races can occasionally split quite a lot and have some sort of moments that will divide the field, especially on a track like this, where that draft and game of leapfrog is going to be oh so strong. Havard Gullickson has that driving style that is just conducive to him winning championships. That's part of the reason why he finds himself with a rather comfortable gap with only 3 weeks left to go in the season.
I've already got a question here on YouTube, by the way. Is Andreas Friedrich German? I don't know.
He is.
Yes. Oh, he is. Oh, well done. There you go. He is German.
I believe so.
I knew he was European. But, yeah, well, we'll hope so. Anyway, not sure what's motivated someone to ask that, but anyway, well, you've answered it. Anyway, Andre Castro currently leads the session in the number 1 car, just ahead of Havard Gullickson. We are going to see our championship leader. Oh dear, there is Andreas Friedrich. Maybe they're just talking about him, and he's gone straight on down there at NASCAR Benz. That's
maybe he was the one that typed out the question.
Yeah. He's too busy typing and goes off the circuit. Well, I was going to say, very difficult corner anyway, you know, NASCAR Ben. Put it this way, it's probably not the last car we're going to see go off the road down there, because as soon as you got a wheel in that grass, you got no chance really.
Two leading right in through that braking zone, and in these SR10s, I've talked about this a lot throughout the season, and I will continue to raise this point for as long as I'm broadcasting Radical SR10 races here on the iRacing platform. The braking is oh so tricky to nail down in these race cars. There's about a 10% window between not being able to slow down in time and hitting the outside wall, or hitting the brakes a little bit too hard, locking up the front tires and going into the corner, very likely with the front end of your race car buried into the back end of the race car that was in front of you. Very small window to try and master in these races, and that's what separates the good drivers from the great drivers. I don't call myself a good driver in these SR10s, mainly because the brakes are always so tricky for me to try and nail down. I've been doing these broadcasts for coming up to over 2 years at this point. So tricky to try and nail down, especially heading into a turn like that. So as you just said, I think that is going to be the real trouble spot among many, it must be said, for this race here tonight.
Yeah, it's super difficult around here, really hard racing. So we are going to see a very interesting race, but it's such a difficult one. Paki Caruso's just gone up to third place, by the way, just under 3 tenths away from pole, which looks like Andre Castro is going to take here. Andreas Friedrich, though, is starting a lap by the looks of things here with just over 2 minutes to go, and he's taking things a bit easier into NASCAR Bend this time round, and he's got that apex nailed instead, in towards turn number 4. Next up, this is left hook. There isn't a right jab afterwards, but it is turn 5. Then through another right-hander before a bit of a shimmy, if you like, the snake, as it's called on this circuit, and then a straight on towards the fastest point on this circuit, the high-speed S's, turn 7, 8, and 9, and then South Bend as well at the end of it. Another very difficult corner, turn 10.
And VIR, a very historic racetrack in the world of American motorsports as well. It's one with a rather tumultuous history throughout it as well. A lot of people think of VIR, think of this track when it comes to American sports car racing. It's hosted the SCCA National Championship runoffs for many moons, and just a whole lot of other sports car races have taken place here over the years. IMSA still runs here every now and then. The track opened all the way back in 1957, but incidentally, the track was abandoned between 2074. 1974 was when the track was abandoned. That would be well far off into the future. But from 1974 all the way up to the year 2000, this track was just fallen by the wayside. The original owners didn't like the rowdy fans, which in American motorsports, it happened to Watkins Glen, happened to here as well. And the track was abandoned for many moons. Then in the late 90s, it was bought by the owners, I believe still own the track to this day. They fixed it up. They had to change the track a little bit and knock down some of the old buildings. But what was a chicken farm in the late 90s is now one of the most fantastic motorsports facilities in the country. Just such a fantastic story surrounding this track.
I didn't know it was shut down for so long, actually, but yeah, certainly true. Makes me laugh that it's for rowdy fans, I must admit. That is amusing to me. But there you go. I just can't picture motorsport fans being particularly rowdy, to be honest, in my own experience. Especially compared to other sports, goodness me.
I mean, have you ever heard of them pushing over cars and buses into the pit at Watkins Glen back when F1 was racing there?
No, I have not heard of that, no. But there you go. I just can't picture it for some reason. I'll need to picture it by actually searching some pictures. Anyway, Andre Castro has taken the pole position for this round of the championship with Howard Gullickson alongside, just under a tenth in behind. Paki Caruso and James Barry are on row 2, with J.L. Larson and Heinz Braun then on row 3. Just over half a second back is Kim Andre Bjorklund in 7th, with Grajan Bubak alongside. Rafa Blanco and George Gonzaga round out the top 10, with Leon Hernandez and Dennis Kirkopoulos to round out row 6. Nikos Hanke is next ahead of Gordon Hogg, with Luke Crowley surprisingly down in 15th, ahead of Kyle Lowe and Herve Boyard, who rounds out the 17 drivers who qualified at least. We may have some more who didn't qualify as well, though maybe not actually. Depends how the splits have actually worked out. But we've got our championship leader here. He's on the outside of the front row, and he's got a big chance on the way down in towards turn number 1 on this first occasion. First time of asking as well, with Rafa Blanco alongside in lots of our broadcasted races in the 2100 GMT split here on Racespot TV and on the iRacing YouTube channel as well. We've seen so many battles between these drivers, and between those especially towards the front, who are in this session all over again. As I mentioned, Gullickson is here tonight, Blanco as well. They are 1 and 2 in this championship, with Friedrich 3rd also here as well. The green flag waves from VIR, and we are underway with a good start for Blanco. It's not such a good one for Gullickson. He's stuck on the outside line as it's 3 wide right in the background. Gullickson stuck on the outside line here as he's just trying to fight back towards turn 2 and then in towards 3 here on the left-hander. Oh, smoke in the background, but Gullickson's gone backwards. Blanco's held his lead, and for the leaders at least, it is a clean start.
You see that driver going off the track, maybe a little bit of damage on that race car. There may have been a moment, there was a moment heading through turn number 4. That's Kyle Larson, Luke Crowley, and I believe Gordon Howe all involved in that. Heinz Braun getting a piece of the drama as well as they head their way off through left hook. A punch being thrown to these racers as they're dropping down like a rock.
Yeah, that is some incidents to go back and have a look at a little bit later on. But Paki Caruso has made a fantastic start here in the lime and the purple. He is just in behind Andre Castro, who is leading this race ahead of Howard Gullickson and then James Barry. This is what happened in towards turn 1 and turn 2. Nikos Hanke on the inside line here. Oh, and he goes for a spin through turn 2. That's the first part of it, and then further on up, you can see teammates Gonzaga and Braun, I think. No, that's further up the field, but anyway, they all got caught. Oh my word, they all get caught up in it. That's the right pile up.
Yeah, and you look at all the drivers involved and all that. A lot of the inert teammates all coming to blows, heading off through that corner. George Gonzaga, one of the series administrators here in the Radical Sim Racing world, he had a really poor start. That's James Berry with a big sideways snap coming out of Hog Pen, loses it on the grass yet again. He's going to drop down from, I believe, a podium position, or at the very worst, P4. He's now dropped all the way down to P9, so that is a really rough turn of fortune for the Brit in the number 4 car.
Yeah, he was fourth, and now way down the field. This is not a good race so far for the Internet Racing team. You've got James Barry down to 10th now after all of that, and Kirikopoulos is the best placed of them in 7th, although Barry has got back up to 9th in the meantime. Andre Castro still leads though, and Caruso and Gullickson are the only ones to be able to stay with him for the moment, and that slipstream we've been promoting, I guess you could say early on in this broadcast, has not quite come to fruition for Caruso just yet on that back straight towards turn 14.
As I think there's some more drivers dropping down the running order. A side-by-side fight going on involving James Berry, who's still trying to get his bearings straight, and Kyle Lowe, who I've seen a lot of supporters for in the YouTube chat of the stream here on the iRacing Esports Network and the Race Spot TV YouTube channel. It's still a really tough race ahead for these drivers. One lap around here, it's one of the longer laps that we have from this series. I mean, on that first lap, Andre Castro was at a 146.6, so a rather long ride here at VIR. These SR10s are rather quick race cars. When you see the sort of lap times that they can set around tracks all across the world, they can set in some barn burners, as we've got a barn burner of a fight between Caruso and Castro, and Caruso got to jump up into the race lead.
Yeah, that is Paki Caruso leading this race, and what a fantastic start for him as well. Surely, though, Andre Castro is going to respond on the way down in towards turn 1 again here, as he just gets up in behind him into the slipstream and getting a chance here. Outside line, no, he's going to back out of it this time round, and Gullickson's not going to punish him for it. Rafa Blanco, second place in the championship, defends from Kim Andre Bjorklund, and he's going to hold on to 5th place for the moment in towards turn 1 as well.
And one great thing that these drivers definitely know about running well at this track here of VIR, which is pretty much a fixture of these Radical Official Series seasons. It's been here for quite a long time, has this track. Part-of-base content, which is part of the reason why we've had so many drivers sign up all throughout the week. Last time I saw, I believe we were over 45 drivers signed up into this top split broadcast here for this race. Well, signed into this time spot. Second tries a charm. English is clearly failing me during this broadcast, but regardless, seeing a lot of participation this week, and seeing a lot of these drivers know this track like the back of their hands, and they know with the draft around this track, if you can pull off a good defensive game, you could be golden in some of these races. For Paki Caruso, though, there's only so much you can do. Weaving down the back straightaway is just going to put some more heat into your tires and give you a bit more confidence into the braking zone here in a couple of moments' time. The runs that these drivers can get down here are absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah, it is getting rather overcast out there at the moment as well, and track temperature is not that high as things stand, as we know. Pretty gloomy day out there at the Virginia International Raceway. So far, Andre Castro has not been able to do anything about Paki Caruso since he took the lead on lap 2. At the end of lap 3, Caruso able to hold on, I should say, from Castro just in behind him. And again, Caruso intent on defending. I think Castro wants to wait a little bit later on in the race. It looks to me like Castro has had the opportunity to come through in the last couple of laps, but maybe just wants to keep this single file for a few laps, try and distance some of those guys behind before he really starts to fight properly here.
When you've got a race car like this in the form of the Radical SR10, if you start, oh boy, we nearly saw Andre Castro try and pull off a bump and run down into turn number 4. That wasn't going to work. If he tried to go for it, it probably would have ended in tears for the both of them. As we take a look at a moment involving Heinz Braun, who was involved in an incident in the early stages of this race. Not the race that he probably had in mind, and oh, it was a dive. That was never going to work. Heinz, come on. He's a veteran of the series. Frankly, he should know better than go for a dive like that on lap 1.
Well, it's had disastrous consequences, I'm afraid, for a lot of drivers down the field. see Hines himself down in 16th, a long way behind, and it looks like George Gonzaga and Luke Crowley are done for the day as well after the opening exchanges of this race, which is a real shame. Caruso again out through Oak Tree and onto the back straight again without a good enough run to keep Castro comfortably behind. After a lap of waiting though, Andre Castro wants to take the lead. Is it going to be a side-by-side battle though? No. These two so far have either been purposely staying behind one another, I feel, or purposely exchanging the position between the two, either of the two. But so far, no proper wheel-to-wheel racing, really.
Yeah, it looks like these two, I mean, they are veterans of this series, so they know that playing that game of leapfrog, not really allowing yourself to get involved in too much of a battle. We've certainly seen it a lot on iRacing. We're going to see it in real life this weekend. The Indy 500, the fuel game that's usually played at the front of those races, with one driver jumping in front of the other and the driver saying, you know what, I'm just going to let him go by. There's no point really fighting this. If these three drivers were battling tooth and nail, you'd probably see Bobluck right behind in the number 2 car get involved in this battle. And you may end up seeing Rafa Blanco get involved in this fight as well. And one driver who does not want that to happen for sure is your third place runner in the number 3 car of Harvard Gullickson. He leads your official point standings coming into this broadcasted race, but Rafa Blanco is the only driver who can really make a lunge at him with only 3 races left to go from this season. So he's got a bit of a cushion back to the number 12 runner, finds himself in 5th. In an ideal world, this 3-car battle would remain a 3-car battle, at least in the mind of these drivers. If it were my decision, I would love to see a 6-car battle tooth and nail for the win of this race, but I think these drivers at the front of the field have a bit different of an agenda on their mind.
Well, let's see what they do this time round, whether there's going to be a change of tactic here from Castro and Caruso. So far, every 2 laps they've exchanged position. Will it be every 1 lap now? Because Castro's not putting up much of a fight there. Caruso even allowed to pull back to the racing line in time. So this is good racing between these two, but Caruso goes a bit wide there in towards turn 14. Castro hits the brakes not to come past him. I just wonder whether Gullickson's struggling to stay with these guys or whether he is purposely backing off here, because surely if he's added to the mix, things get interesting. Well, Caruso's just gone wide, and that means making interesting here as well. Castro goes to the inside. Caruso wasn't quite expecting that, and they're going to exchange the lead 2 times in 1 lap for the first time tonight at the end of lap 5. Caruso had to be wary there as well of Gullickson, but in the end, he doesn't make anything of that, and Andre Castro gets back to the lead.
And I think Havard Gullickson is maybe looking at these two right in front and is maybe starting to chomp at the bit to get a move done on these competitors. He's down 1 spot from where he started in this race, and with those cars behind, slowly but surely reeling them in behind the roar of these Ford EcoBoost engines in these race cars, you can start to hear the Jaws theme play. I think Harvard Gullickson is feeling the pressure more and more. He may decide to get himself involved in this battle. We saw a tad bit of it. I think that was him just really dipping his toes into the pool to see how that water temperature is as they head their way down that start-finish straightaway off into turn number 1. If you're Harvard Gullickson, I think there's actually a benefit to try and get a move done on these two and just say, you know what, y'all can battle for second. I'm going to try and check out and grab my second win of these broadcasted races.
Well, Gullickson's actually closer to Caruso than Caruso is to Castro here, so this could get quite exciting on the way towards turn 14. Is Gullickson going to do anything about it? No, because Caruso comes to the inside instead, and Castro lets him do that as long as Caruso hits the brakes at the right point this time round. On the bottom of your screen, Leon Hernandez goes through on Dennis Kirkopolos, who's down to 8th place now. He's still up a few on the day, but that's down a place, and Hernandez through in the battle for 7th. The field so far behind has been decimated by the early laps.
Yeah, it looks like we're starting to see the field spread out a little bit. Some incidents in the earlier stages, taking out some heavy contenders, and this competition that we've got in this split is rather tough as well. You've got a whole lot of very quick racers up and down the grid, some veterans of Radical SR10 racing, and just some drivers who have been around the block before. Nicholas Handcut looking to try and get some moves done, as look at that contact being made. That's himself and Gordon Howe getting off the track, and Kyle Lowe trying to get that move done. My apologies, it was Kyle Lowe coming to blows with Handcuts, and a bit of a last-second move from the 13, it must be said.
Yeah, that was Kyle Lowe misjudging the braking point in towards turn 1 there, and getting into the back of those in front, and unfortunately having a bit of trouble there, and dropping down to 14th. And that group now is split apart as well. It's only the leaders really who are battling cleanly as things stand. As the 7th lap is now being completed, we'll get to halfway at the end of this one. Out of Oak Tree, Castro is surely lining himself up for a move again here in that 2nd position. They just have not raced each other really so far, even while exchanging places. Caruso again here is going to be very amenable to this, I think. He is going to let Castro through on the inside. And there you go again. At what point, though, do these two start racing each other? Because the second half of this race is about to start already.
Yeah, and once we get into crunch time for this race, we're going to start to see these drivers go for some bolder and more audacious moves than we have been. You can see missing the braking marker by a country mile down to turn number 1. Kyle Lowe, very lucky that it was only himself and Nico's hand cuts. Really, the only drivers getting caught out in that 2-2 badly. As you can see, Packy Caruso darting the front end of that number 8 car multiple different directions, heading down into the braking zone of turn number 1. I think he's starting to get a little bit nervous. We may see these drivers reach the point where we're like, okay, we're getting into crunch time. This is a point where I need to settle down, relax, get a good feel as to how my race car is, and go from there. But on the contrary to these drivers maybe taking it a little bit easy, at the front of the field, this 3-car battle is rapidly turning into a 4-car battle. As you can see, Bubluck in that number 2 car has reeled those drivers in. It's now nearly 7/10 of a second between Bubluck and Gullickson for P3 in this race. So we may end up seeing this battle for first turn into a 4-car battle from a 3-car battle.
Yeah, we really might. I mean, once you're in the slipstream, you're in the game, and now that gives Gullickson something to think about here, because suddenly he's been positioning himself in 3rd, not really getting involved with the 2 in front, as if to say, well, you can fight for now, but I'm not going to get involved just yet. Well, just as we've been saying that, and just as he did the work, Gradian Bubluck has now got off the road at Oak Tree by the looks of that, and it's back to 3 again for the lead. So Castro leads, Caruso leads Gullickson. Oh, and Caruso went alongside Castro there because he saw Gullickson coming. And now those are the games that we expect to start being played. There goes Gullickson to the inside because it's not worked for Caruso. And now it doesn't work for Gullickson either. But this is getting super interesting now. Gullickson starting to wonder how he can get into 2nd place and then 1st.
Yeah, and you can see that Gullickson thought to try and go for a move around the outside right towards the end of the lap, heading his way through roller coaster. Didn't work out that way. Instead, they're still running line of stern down into turn number 1. Looks like Caruso not going to go for a move on Castro, and Gullickson not going to go for a move on Caruso. So they stay P1, P2, and P3. What we saw there from Harvard Gullickson was a move of a champion, the reigning champion here in the Radical Esports Cup official series. And based off the fact he's leading it at the present moment, you can tell that he's looking to go back to back with the points gap that he has. He doesn't feel like he has the gap to really push it. I can't necessarily blame him. What we saw right there was a driver who wants to make it to the end of this race, wants to have a good average finish from the season, just be there at the very end. To finish first you have to finish, and a move like that is part of the reason why thus far this season Havard Gullickson has an average finish of 4th. That right there was a driver who does not want to hit the wall.
Yeah, he's been unbelievably consistent so far this season. And down the bottom of your screen, by the way, you can see another one of those fights. Kimondre Bjorklund just in front of Gradian Bubluck, who just went off the road there and dropped down to 6th position. That is a real big shame for him after working so hard to get up to these guys out front. As we get on to lap 9 here, he's coming back again now alongside Bjorklund as Caruso gets through on Castro. That's pretty late in the day, but he's got it done with a bit of ease there, a little bit only. Bubble goes through indeed on Bjorklund. That was a lot easier, but he's gone quite deep into 14. He'll get away with that, and he'll be back into the top 5.
Yeah, still looking pretty good for him at the present moment. Seeing these drivers put on some very well-composed drives, despite the drama that we had at the very start, may have broken up the pack a little bit, but regardless, these drivers are keeping calm, keeping cool, and keeping collected around this racetrack. Could be part of the reason why we have side-by-side fights all throughout this field. They're still pushing it hard. We're following Leon Hernandez, who's currently slotted right behind these two, battling tooth and nail all through turn number 1. Kimondre Bjorklund, a veteran of these Radical races, trying to get a move done to jump his way up into the top 5. It's close, heading through turn number 3. Gonna hold on to the inside line yet again through 4. Bubluck trying to hold his own around the outside to stick it down the inside into turn number 5. Not close enough. They single file out off into the snake, but this track just puts on some fantastic racing. It's conducive to go side by side in these race cars.
Yeah, in these cars. I keep describing this circuit. It's just not normal for this circuit to see this. Look at that from Bubok. Oh my word! And it was always going to end in a crash. Bjorklund's off the road down there in the grass, up at turn 9. The most high-speed corner you can imagine on this circuit, as on the bottom of your screen, off the circuit. James Barry, dear oh dear, it's all happening here. Kurakapoulos through as well on the outside of Bjorklund. It is absolutely all happening out there at the moment, as some of the high-speed corners of this circuit providing high drama at the moment. Here comes Castro in the meantime on Caruso. He won't go anywhere. 4 laps to go. That was all happening in the middle sector there.
That was absolutely fantastic. Full balls to the wall, full bravery from Bulbuck to be able to get that move done in the number 2 car, jumping in front of Kim Andre and Bjorklund. What happened there, Bjorklund sent slightly offline at the beginning of that S. I'm not really sure the best way I can describe it. I think I'm going to hold off on the comparison for now, as we got some bump drafting at the front of the field. Caruso and Castro nose to tail, literally, as here comes Gullickson, maybe trying to get a move done down the inside off into turn number 1. Not able to get it done, but what we saw there, that moment for the number 11 of Kim Andre and Bjorklund, he got intimidated. There's no doubt about that when Bulbuck pulled off that move, which frankly I thought we were going to see that number 2 car go off the track in a cloud of grass, flakes, dust, and steam. Didn't work out that way for him. Worked out that way for the number 11 of Bjorklund. What we saw heading off through that section of the racetrack, it's like a luge event at the Winter Olympics. He got slightly sideways heading off through the first part of that, and that just snowballs out of control for there. And by the time you headed off into this section, he took a one-way trip off into the grass. And James Barry, I don't think he escaped that moment with clean pants either.
Goodness me, that was some moment there. And really a lesson, I suppose, not to go side by side through that section, because especially not start a side by side. If it carries over from the first sector, then fine, but not to start a move like that. It doesn't often work out very well. As Andre Castro now is looking to make a move on Caruso. Gullickson, I thought was going through the middle there from that camera shot, but he wasn't. He's still biding his time. Castro gets in front of Caruso now, and it's all well and good for these two.
Whoa!
Contact! Never mind! Oh, it's not going to happen to the very end of this race. It's going to be drama early on for Harvard Gullickson, who's off the road in the grass. The championship leader is going to go off here. And, oh my word, Rafa Blanco has seen a lifeline there. Gullickson drops to 6th place. James Barry and Dennis Kurakapoulos will now be behind him. After all that waiting, it's come to nothing for Harvard Gullickson.
Yeah, right as he tried to get involved in all of that, it ends in absolute heartbreak heading through there. You can see some side-by-side racing now involving James Barry and Harvard Gullickson, 2 champions over the past year of these Radical Esports Cup races. James Barry won 3 back-to-back-to-back in 2024. Gullickson trying to look for 2 in a row, but it's not going to happen here in this race. As you can see this moment, it was a moment there. Castro ran wide, clipped, and all you could see, nothing that Gullickson could have done trying to be the opportunist. He just got hip checked off the road.
Yeah, I was about to ask, what's he going to do from 3rd place? But no point asking that anymore. What's he going to do from 7th, I guess, is the more pertinent one now. Caruso still leads ahead of Castro. Rafa Blanco has really gained from this. Not only is he now ahead of Gullickson, but he's actually in with the leaders now. But with 2 laps to go, has Castro and Blanco got enough laps here to actually get up to the back of Caruso here and make an impression on this race lead? Because that is quite a gap, 2/3 of a second. It was 1 second when they crossed the line this time round, but it looks like Castro's in the draft. He might well get there in time for the final lap.
And the one thing that I am thinking of more than anything when it comes to these racers, and that incident they had down into this very same section of the racetrack just 1 lap ago, that was some pretty big whacks, and these cars are aero sensitive. If there's any sort of damage to the wings, any sort of damage to the bodywork, especially with how important it is that these cars have a good run heading down the straightaways, considering how important the draft is, if there's a bit of an aerodynamic tweak to either of these race cars, it's going to feel like they're dragging an anchor through asphalt heading down some of the flat-out blasts around this racetrack. You can see Castro is within striking distance of Packy Caruso. The gap is now less than 0.4 of a second as they head their way down into turn number 3 for one of the last times in this race. Castro has been an indomitable force in these 2100 GMT broadcasted top split races here from the Radical Esports Cup, and certainly proving that right now. Caruso, on the other hand, yet to really leave his mark on this season, but he's quick too. This is going to be a heads-up fight, and And Rafa Blanco has a win up to this point as well in this season. He's going to look to take full advantage of that moment involving Gullickson and take a pretty big bite out of that championship gap.
Yeah, and he'll be Dennis Kurikopoulos' his best friend at the moment as well, because Gullickson could lose another place theoretically in the next 2 laps as well. So he'll be keeping one eye on that while he's trying to keep his eyes on the road here and watch what's going out in front here. Caruso lost another 1/10 of a second since this time last lap, effectively through all the corners, and the slipstream is going to play another role here. But Castro knows if he starts the last run on the back straight there through Oak Tree Corner next lap, with that sort of a margin, he's not close enough. He needs to be 3/10 or 4/10 or something like that behind. As the battle for fourth goes on again, Hernandez through on Bubok, and that is again not a fight through turn 14. It's all going to come down to the last lap here. We've not seen too much side by side through turn 14 and so on, but we're about to see it on this last lap here.
Yeah, and when that white flag comes out, we're going to see these drivers at the front of the field battle tooth and nail. Andre Castro, he's a quick driver, but he also knows when to break his elbows at. He's not going to be one driver that will lay back in to allow his rivals to jump into a position and get their way into victory lane. Castro, if anyone is going to pounce to try and take the lead in a very likely wounded race car, it will be him. But if those 2 drivers come to blows, we got to look at Rafa Blanco in the number 12 car. He would be the one to pick up the pieces if those drivers crash, as Leon Hernandez and Bulbuck have a fantastic battle for P4 right at the bottom of your screen. But my main focus is on the front of the field. Caruso and Castro, less than a 1/4 of a second between them, heading down into the uphill for the final time.
And I don't suspect Caruso wants to be in this situation, particularly with such a small lead going through Oak Tree, but he's got to try and get the exit somehow. And he's done all right, actually, through those couple of corners there at 11 and 12. Again, flashing his lights at the lap car. He does not want that car to play a role at all here, as Castro gets into the slipstream now, and he picks his side. In fact, he's going to have it chosen for him by Peggy Caruso, who goes to the right. Can he brake late on the outside and defend this position, maybe? Oh, very late on the brakes. Can he just force Andre Castro? He can, and Caruso looks like he's going to win this race from here. He's only got 2 attempts though. He's got to defend into the final turns. He's got to get a good run, and he's wide, and Castro's going to get a good run here. He's going to be right side. Oh, he's off. He's trying to get such a good run. He's off the circuit here, off into the grass, and he's lawn mowing out there while Peggy Caruso comes through, and he takes the race win here at the Virginia International Raceway. What a fantastic finish to that race. The gap 9/10 at the line, but it doesn't tell the story. Caruso with a great bit of defense to win that thing at the end.
That right there tells you everything you need to know about the kind of racer that Andre Castro is. He put everything on the line heading off to the final corner. He knew that that run to the checkered was just long enough whereby he could draw alongside and maybe get that moved on Peggy Caruso if he just carried enough speed heading down the hill onto that straight for the final time. He did not lift. He would not lift. And at the end of the day, it didn't work out too well for him, but the fighting effort goes to Andre Castro. He may not pick up the checkered flag, but he stole my heart with that move at the end.
He gave it everything, but he couldn't quite get the win ahead of Caruso, who is, as I say, got 9 attempts at the end. Maybe that does flatter him slightly. Rafa Blanco finishes 3rd and gains some points on Gullickson, who finishes 7th. In between them, Graziano Bubok, Leon Hernandez and James Barry. Dennis Kurikopoulos couldn't get past Gullickson in the end. Andreas Frederick and Kim-Andre Bjortland round out the top 10. Kjell Larsen finished in 11th ahead of Nikos Hanke with Gordon Haag next. Herb Boyard made up 3 places in that race to finish 14th with Carl Lowe, the last driver on the lead lap. Heinz Bruin was 1 down in 16th. Josh Kondaga did actually get back onto the circuit again, finished 4 laps down in the end of that one. 13 laps down with Luke Crowley after getting involved in that opening lap incident, which was a shame for him. And it certainly did spread out the field early on as well. But the good thing was, out front, there was a very clear race between Castro, Caruso, and late on as well for Rafa Blanco as well. But Caruso was the mainstay up towards the front, and in fact the leaders did stay super close together all throughout that race, and it came down to the very end as we suspected it always would round here.
Yeah, when it comes to races in these SR10s at VIR, you can never say it's over until that lead car comes across that start-finish line and takes that checkered flag. For Packy Caruso, he was probably thinking that we'd see Andre Castro somehow bolt in front of him right at the end, even with that trip off through the grass. I'm sure Packy Caruso was staring at his rearview mirror all the way up to that point where he crossed that start-finish line to win this race. You can never say never when it comes to races at VIR. It doesn't really matter what sort of car you're in. And for Packy Caruso, he is going to grab his first win of the season in these 2100 top split races. Andre Castro was oh so close to grabbing not his first, but would have been his fifth this season. Wasn't close enough, but he gave it the old college try, so to speak, coming out of the final turn.
I actually think he almost threw it away by trying too hard there. You know, maybe it's slightly unpopular opinion and he wouldn't have made it anyway, but he got such a good run out that corner. Anyway, maybe he got such a good run because he was always going to go off the road. But you know, he was in such a good position there that I actually think throwing himself into the grass like that might have prevented him from getting the run that he needed, because it was clear to me that Caruso was wide of that final apex and he was really under pressure there.
And, you know, maybe this is an unpopular opinion as well, but I think you may be right there, you. And I will say, though, for Andre Castro, I think the penalty of going off the track, he not only lost the extra money that he would make if this was a real race from winning it, he's also probably going to pick up a pretty hefty invoice from the landscaping crews here at VIR. He spent probably about, I would say, a third of a mile in the grass coming to the start-finish straightaway. He did not spin out of all that, which I think is absolutely incredible, but nonetheless, that was some amazing stuff at the end of it all. I wonder how that would have been if that incident didn't happen down into the roller coaster. If we saw Harvard Gullickson involved in that battle as well, I wonder how different things would have shaken up.
Yeah, absolutely. Just one more, by the way, before we go. It doesn't look like we're going to get any drivers to chat to, but hopefully they'll pop in. Does this do anything for the driver standings? You said Gullickson is hard-pressed to be under any sort of pressure here, really, or indicated as much anyway with Rafa Blanco. Then there is a big gap back to Friedrich, I suppose, who still finished behind both of the two in front of him in the championship. Does this do anything? Is Blanco any closer, really?
I think for Rafa Blanco, what this did was make sure that Harvard Gullickson isn't going to be sleeping too comfortably for the next few weeks. I don't think it's going to be a straight-up championship fight, but Harvard Gullickson really hopes that he can get a good grip of things at Interlagos and especially Bathurst in 1 week's time, where, as we've certainly seen, even with our time doing broadcasts, if you have a moment heading off through that track, really at any point of it, you're going to take a one-way trip into the barrier. And in this series, if you have a moment, you are going to be absolutely done for. So I think Harvard Gullickson, what he really lost in this is a really comfortable next 2 weeks to seal the deal in the second championship. He's going to have to work just a little bit harder to try and get it done.
Well, let's see how it goes next week. 2100 GMT Racing comes to you from Mount Panorama. We'll be live same time, same place as you found this broadcast, either on the Racebot TV YouTube channel or indeed the iRacing YouTube channel. Thanks very much for your company tonight on the Radical Esports Cup here at the Virginia International Raceway. I've been Neil O'Leary alongside Ron Mounds, and Ramiro Augustin Cisneros has been behind the cameras. We'll see you in 1 week at Bathurst. It's goodbye for now.